something huge coming up, which is a documentary about P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy.
Yeah, yeah.
Did he do it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I know
He did it.
you've been heavy on social
No, he
media
did it. He
talking
did it.
about
He
it.
did it.
What caused Diddy, the powerful mogul of the music industry, to collapse in the middle of the courtroom? Mere seconds after 50 Cent took the witness stand, the room fell deathly silent, all eyes fixed on the man once seen as an untouchable icon. Whispers spread quickly, but no one dared to draw conclusions. A sudden pain, crushing pressure, or a secret, deep and dangerous, just ignited? As 50 Cent's name echoed through the room, the air seemed to thicken. This man, once a friend, once a rival, now stood there, his gaze cold, hands gripping what might be the key to the truth. Over 2 decades, untold stories, shadowy parties, and whispers of power and betrayal had lingered between them. Did 50 Cent truly hold evidence, fragments potent enough to shake an entire empire? The sound of a chair toppling, ragged breaths, and the relentless flash of cameras filled the scene. Diddy, who once stood at the pinnacle, now lay motionless, as if the truth itself had brought him down. Questions raced through everyone's minds. What was revealed? Would 50 Cent's testimony change everything? Was this the day of reckoning, when the curtain of secrecy would be torn away, exposing the hidden corners of an era steeped in power and darkness?
Has made Sean Combs a little bit nervous.
To me on that when he said, yeah, he looked like the gay homie. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Stop. Then he was like, yo, it's like, yo, so yo, when we gonna get the chance to, to kick it, like we can just hang out. You gotta kick it. This is Bob.
Okay.
He telling me we gotta kick it, and he was like, yo, why don't we like go shopping? I mean, like I pay for it. I was like,
As 50 Cent stepped up to the witness stand, the courtroom atmosphere grew tense. The judge raised an eyebrow, her sharp gaze tracking every movement. Sean Combs, known as Diddy, was whispering to his legal team when he suddenly looked up, his face pale as if confronted by something unexpected. His hands, usually steady while taking notes throughout the trial, now trembled uncontrollably. 50 Cent, without glancing at Diddy, sat down with a stern expression, his eyes fixed on the space ahead, as if bracing for a moment he had long awaited. "I'm here to tell the truth," 50 Cent began, his voice low and steady. The judge nodded, signaling for him to proceed. From that moment, the courtroom seemed to turn a new page. What 50 Cent was about to reveal wasn't mere online rumors or tales spun by the media. These were pieces of evidence he had quietly collected over a decade, meticulously and patiently waiting for this very day. Diddy's lawyer shot to his feet, his voice firm, objecting that 50 Cent was not on the initial witness list and questioning the relevance of this testimony. The prosecutor, with calm assurance, explained that a series of newly uncovered evidence directly tied to allegations of extortion and serious misconduct had emerged. After a brief sidebar discussion, the judge made his ruling, his voice clear, objection overruled. "Mr. Curtis Jackson, please proceed." The courtroom fell so silent that the faint hum of the air conditioning overhead became noticeable. Reporters in the front row, pens poised, kept their eyes fixed on the witness stand. Diddy's family, present in support, exchanged anxious glances, their hands clasped tightly. 50 Cent adjusted the microphone, his gaze locked on the jury, his voice low but weighted with gravity. "What I'm about to share isn't based on rumors or hearsay. I have evidence, recordings from 2003 that I've kept for over a decade." A ripple of murmurs spread softly through the room. Diddy's lawyer started to rise again to object, but Diddy, his face tense, placed a hand on the lawyer's shoulder, signaling silence. He seemed to sense what was coming and braced himself to face it. The prosecutor stepped forward, carrying a laptop and several hard drives, placing them on the table like crucial puzzle pieces. "Your Honor, we've had these recordings verified by 3 independent audio experts. They are authentic, unedited, and directly support the testimony of multiple victims," the prosecutor stated. The judge reviewed the documents, nodded, and said, "Proceed." 50 Cent took a deep breath, his eyes reflecting a mix of determination and a trace of regret. "I've held this in for too long," he began, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much. "I've built my own music career, created hit TV shows, and run companies worth millions. But nothing could erase what I saw, what I experienced, and who was behind it all." He tilted his head slightly toward Diddy, his gaze tinged with unmistakable disappointment. "It was you." He recounted how it all started with what seemed like a simple invitation extended through music industry connections. It was a chance to network at one of Diddy's lavish parties in the Hamptons. "Back then, I was still pretty new to the scene. Being invited to Diddy's party was a big deal. I'd heard about these events, so I didn't think much of it. But when I stepped into that sprawling, secluded mansion behind reinforced gates and high walls, I sensed something was off. 50 Cent shared, his voice lowering as if drawing the listeners back to that very moment. Inside, security personnel stood in abundance, checking guests' phones at the door. The atmosphere felt strange, with people appearing tense, their eyes avoiding contact. Loud music blared, drowning out conversations just a few steps away. 50 Cent noticed tiny cameras cleverly disguised among the decorations. They said it was for security to protect the stars. But I sensed something else, like they were hiding what was happening inside, he said, his gaze distant, as if reliving the unease of that night. As he ventured deeper into the mansion, the crowd thinned. Doors were guarded by security, who meticulously checked guest lists. The feeling of being watched was constant. After a few drinks, Diddy suddenly approached him. 50 Cent recalled Diddy's words, his voice low but commanding, "I decide who succeeds and who fails in this industry." Everyone here knows that Diddy's smile, according to 50 Cent, held no warmth, but rather served as a stark assertion of control. At that time, I was still trying to build my career after the shooting that nearly took my life. 50 Cent continued, his voice revealing unwavering resilience. I wasn't in a position to challenge someone like Diddy, but I also wouldn't let anyone control me. So from that night on, I started recording everything. He explained that he initially used a small device hidden in his jacket, later upgrading to more advanced technology. I didn't have a specific purpose for them. It was a way to protect myself. If something happened, there'd be evidence. The judge interrupted, his tone calm. "Did you have the consent of those in the recordings?" 50 Cent replied, "In New York, where most of the recordings were made, only one party needs to consent, and I consented. Besides, these weren't private conversations, they happened at crowded events." Diddy's lawyer immediately objected, arguing the recordings violated privacy rights. The prosecutor countered that they documented criminal behavior, overriding any confidentiality concerns. The judge, after consideration, ruled recordings directly relevant to the criminal allegations will be admitted. 50 Cent continued, explaining that he had turned over hundreds of hours of recordings to investigators 3 months earlier, after seeing the video of Diddy assaulting Cassie in a hotel. That video confirmed what I'd witnessed for 10 years. It wasn't an isolated incident, it was a pattern, he said, his voice heavy with gravity. As the prosecutor prepared to play the first recording from August 2003, Diddy began to sweat, his trembling hand clutching the water glass his lawyer handed him. The audio crackled through the speakers, slightly distorted but Diddy's voice unmistakable. "No one leaves until I say so. No one refuses me. Do you understand?" A trembling female voice replied, "Please, I just want to go home." Diddy continued, "You'll leave when I'm done. That's how this works." 50 Cent explained, "That was at a party after the 2003 MTV Awards. I was in the next room, hearing the exchange. The girl was a model brought by one of Diddy's associates. She wanted to leave, but he wouldn't let her." Another recording from 2007 played next, Diddy's voice cold. "I own everyone here. I made you, and I can destroy you just as easily. Don't test me." 50 Cent identified some background voices as artists from Bad Boy Records, recounting how Diddy grew furious when someone resisted his creative direction. It was at a recording session. "He didn't just threaten their careers, but their safety too," 50 Cent said, his voice laced with frustration and resolve. Each recording played like a puzzle piece, gradually painting a picture of control and oppression spanning a decade. One from 2012 captured Diddy discussing an event he called a special party for the weekend. "Collect all the phones, set everything up as usual, double the amount from last time. Make sure everyone signs confidentiality agreements before entering," Diddy said. Another voice asked about special guests, and Diddy replied, "They don't have a choice. If they want to keep working here, they follow orders." The atmosphere in the courtroom grew heavier. Diddy sat hunched in his chair, eyes averted, sweat beading on his forehead. His lawyer repeatedly objected, arguing the recordings were taken out of context, but the judge upheld the ruling, allowing the proceedings to continue. A recording from 2016, just weeks before the incident with Cassie, stunned everyone. Diddy's voice rang out, "She's getting too free, thinking she can make decisions without me. I need to remind her who's in charge." Another male voice asked, "What are you going to do?" Diddy responded, his tone ice cold, "Whatever it takes, I have enough to keep her in line. She knows what happens to anyone who defies me." Silence blanketed the room as the recording ended. Some jurors shifted uncomfortably, their eyes betraying unease. Cassie's lawyers exchanged quick words, scribbling notes furiously. Chief 50 Cent explained, his voice heavy with sorrow. It was a private dinner at Diddy's house, just about 6 people. He was talking about Cassie when she wasn't there. I hid the recording device in my watch, sensing something bad was coming, but I didn't know how to intervene. The prosecutor asked, "Did you try to warn Miss Ventura?" 50 Cent nodded, his eyes reflecting regret. "I tried reaching out through mutual friends, but Diddy had her completely isolated. I was worried about what he might do if he knew I was helping her." The recordings continued, unveiling a timeline of manipulation, threats, and shady deals. They corroborated the earlier victims' testimonies, providing clear evidence for what had once been mere words. As the recordings played, Diddy breathed heavily, his face flushed, hands trembling as he loosened his tie. His lawyer, visibly concerned, whispered something to him before turning to the judge. "Your Honor, my client is unwell. We request a recess." The judge nodded, signaling a break. The air in the room remained taut, every eye fixed on Diddy, who seemed to be grappling with the weight of his past. But suddenly, Diddy shot to his feet, his legs unsteady, then collapsed to the floor. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Court staff rushed to his side, trying to assist as murmurs spread through the room. The judge, with a calm but firm voice, called for order, directing security to clear the area and summon medical help. Diddy lay there, breathing heavily, his face pale, eyes shut tight as if wrestling with himself. 50 Cent, still on the witness stand, watched quietly, his gaze heavy with a mix of sorrow and resolve, observing the man who was once a towering force in the music industry now motionless before him. The next day, the trial resumed in a tense atmosphere. Diddy returned, but he looked weary, his eyes sunken, shoulders slightly slumped. A medical report stated he suffered from severe stress and dehydration, but was fit to proceed. His legal team filed for a delay, but the judge, with a clear voice, denied it. "We will continue as scheduled." All eyes turned to 50 Cent as he stepped back to the witness stand, ready to continue his account. He began, his voice low, gaze distant, as if reliving the memory. "In 2009, I followed Diddy to a private area at an event in New York, thinking it was a chance to discuss a business project. But what I saw, I couldn't forget." He paused, taking a breath, his voice trembling slightly with emotion. "There were young girls there, some looking like they might collapse, eyes glazed, visibly uneasy. I recognized a few from music video shoots. Others were clearly uncomfortable but didn't know how to leave. And Diddy, he stood there, orchestrating everything like it was the most normal thing." 50 Cent continued, his voice steady but laced with regret. "A few days later, I got a call from an unknown number. A cold voice said, 'I know what you saw. Stay quiet if you still want to succeed.' Then they hung up." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the jury as if urging them to feel the unease of that moment. "I thought it was just a passing threat until an anonymous package arrived at my home. Inside was a USB drive. I hesitated, but I opened it. It was footage from that night." He described, his voice heavy with sorrow, "I don't recall entering that room, but there I was in the video, standing in the far corner, quietly watching." Then Diddy's voice came from behind the camera. "Now I have something to keep everyone here in line. That's how we stay connected." The fear I felt was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. 50 Cent sighed, his eyes revealing an inner struggle. "I realized I wasn't just invited, I was put in that situation as a way to be controlled." From then on, he began systematically recording everything related to Diddy, "Not just to protect myself," he said, his voice firm, "but for those who had no voice, no power to fight back. I thought, if I gathered enough evidence, one day the truth would come to light." The prosecutor presented more recordings spanning 2010 to 2020, each one unveiling another facet of how Diddy maintained influence over artists, staff, and associates. A recording from 2014 played, Diddy's voice cold. "Money isn't enough. Money can run out. Fame isn't enough either. It fades. The key is to hold something over everyone around you. That's real power." 50 Cent explained, his voice low but weighted with gravity. That mindset was in everything Diddy did. He didn't just want success. He wanted to control people, make them afraid to even think of standing up to him. The prosecutor asked about specific cases involving those affected. 50 Cent mentioned several well-known artists who had faced pressure or witnessed Diddy's behavior but stayed silent out of fear. "It wasn't just what he did," he said, his gaze sweeping the courtroom, "but how he made people believe they could end up the same way." Rumors spread who lost their job, who was sidelined, who suddenly vanished from the industry. No one dared speak up because of that atmosphere. He described how Diddy used generosity. Expensive gifts, lavish vacations to make people feel special, only to suddenly mention the fate of those who dared to oppose him. The message was always clear. This could happen to you, 50 Cent said, his voice tinged with frustration. The recordings captured discussions about paying off witnesses, erasing evidence, and aligning stories to protect Diddy's image. The jury listened intently, some scribbling notes furiously, their eyes betraying unease. Diddy sat motionless, his gaze fixed forward, occasionally whispering to his lawyer. After the previous day's events, he seemed to be suppressing his emotions, his face revealing little. 50 Cent pressed on, his voice lowering as he explained why he waited a decade. I needed undeniable proof, he said, his sincere eyes meeting the jury's. If it was just my word, I knew I'd be torn apart. But when that video of Diddy assaulting Cassie surfaced, I couldn't stay silent. That could have been anyone, even me. He recounted the pressure he faced after rejecting Diddy's invitations. Radio stations stopped playing my music. Longtime colleagues went silent. Rumors spread that I was difficult, that I was jealous. I understood it was his way of applying pressure without saying it outright. 50 Cent gave a wistful smile, sharing how he quietly carved his own path, from television production to his liquor business, to break free from Diddy's influence. The prosecutor played a 2019 recording where Diddy said, he thinks he's untouchable now, but no one is invincible. 50 Cent explained, as I grew stronger, he shifted to easier targets, people with fewer resources, less voice, but he never forgot I'd challenged him. When Cassie spoke out, 50 Cent knew the issue was far bigger. I realized how many others were living in fear, he said, his voice heavy. The prosecutor asked what prompted him to turn evidence over to the authorities. I stayed silent for 10 years, telling myself it wasn't my fight. But when that hotel video surfaced and I heard from a friend that Diddy's team was trying to cover it up, I couldn't take it anymore. He described a sleepless night, haunted by memories of parties, threats, and shattered careers. I called the FBI and told them I had evidence from a decade ago. I was ready to answer any question. Looking at the jury, his voice steady, he said, I'm not just a bystander. My silence once made me complicit. Now I'm here to change that. Turning to Diddy, 50 Cent's tone sharpened. You built an empire on control. You called it family style, but you imprisoned everyone around you. Diddy didn't respond, his gaze vacant. 50 Cent stood tall, his eyes resolute, as if declaring that the truth, no matter how long buried, would finally come to light. As 50 Cent prepared to leave the witness stand, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small weathered object, a mini cassette recorder, long outdated. He held it up, his gaze unwavering, his voice resonating through the courtroom. This is the first device I used to record back in 2003 when I started seeing what he was doing. It reminds me that power, unchecked, can cause profound harm. He turned to the jury, his eyes earnest as if imparting a deeper message. This isn't just about parties or me or a single video, he said, his voice carrying the weight of years of reflection. It's about a system that silences people, shielding wrongdoing. If we don't confront it, it will continue, quietly hurting those without a voice. Then he looked directly at Diddy, his eyes blazing with resolve. You said no one could stop you, but the truth can. 50 Cent stepped down, gathered his things, his expression weary but resolute, ready to walk away. Diddy sat there, his face pale, body rigid, hands trembling slightly on the table. For the first time in a decade, he no longer seemed to command the room. The prosecutor stepped forward, voice calm but firm. Mr. Jackson, based on what you've witnessed and recorded over 10 years, do you believe Sean Combs remains a danger to others? 50 Cent answered without hesitation, his voice steady. As long as he has influence, money, and connections, yes. The system that props him up still exists. Those who enabled him are still in power, and many victims are still living in fear. As 50 Cent left the stand, Diddy suddenly stood, his eyes wild with panic. Security officers moved in, alert, but before they could react, his eyes rolled back, his body swayed, and he collapsed to the floor. Murmurs erupted, the courtroom descending into chaos. The judge, voice composed, demanded order, calling for medical assistance and clearing the area. Paramedics rushed in, lifting Diddy onto a stretcher, his face motionless, breathing faint. His legal team huddled around, their eyes betraying worry, while reporters, ushered out, scrambled to capture the final image of Diddy being carried away. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered, news of 50 Cent's testimony spreading like wildfire. As he stepped out, the air stilled for a moment before applause erupted, spontaneous and heartfelt. 50 Cent didn't acknowledge it, his gaze pensive, walking straight to the waiting car with his security team close by. A reporter shouted, "Do you believe justice will be served?" He paused, turned, and answered in a low, clear voice, "That's not up to me. The jury will decide." The car door closed and he drove off in silence. Though he'd left the stand, 50 Cent didn't carry the look of a victor. He seemed like a man who'd just shed a decade's burden, his shoulders still weighed down by painful memories. Inside the courtroom, the tension lingered, as if no one knew how to move forward. Some jurors quietly wiped tears, their eyes glinting with emotion. The judge, though composed, couldn't hide the pensive expression on his face. Before collapsing, Diddy, for the first time in the trial, seemed at a loss for words. Outside, 50 Cent avoided the press, offering no waves or pauses for photos. He strode through the main entrance, head held high, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion, as if carrying the weight of a decade's unforgettable truths. When asked later, he only said, his voice heavy with sorrow, "There's no relief here, only the truth, and it needed to be told long ago." Beyond the courtroom, the entertainment industry began to reel. Record label executives held urgent meetings, halting projects tied to Diddy. Those who once publicly supported him now spoke cautiously, expressing concern and distancing themselves. PR firms issued internal memos advising clients to avoid comment. Online, old interviews resurfaced, where Diddy's remarks about power and influence now sounded chilling. Photos from his events were re-examined, the uneasy expressions of young artists taking on new meaning. Allegations once dismissed as rumors were now met with newfound gravity. Fans were stunned, not only by the revelations, but also by the fact that someone like 50 Cent had quietly carried this burden for a decade. They wondered why legitimate concerns were once brushed aside, obscured by the industry's glittering facade. Diddy remained hospitalized for 3 days after his second collapse. His legal team filed to dismiss the trial, citing health issues, but the judge denied the request, stating, "The trial will resume next week with or without the defendant's presence." Leaked medical reports indicated Diddy suffered from severe stress, high blood pressure, and an irregular heartbeat. Some dismissed it as a ploy for sympathy, while others believed the pressure of his crumbling public image had taken a genuine toll. Meanwhile, 50 Cent faced both support and criticism. Many praised his courage for speaking out despite the risks, but others questioned why he hadn't acted sooner given a decade's worth of evidence. In a rare response to the press, 50 Cent spoke earnestly, "I needed enough evidence to not be dismissed. One recording can be twisted, but 10 years of recordings tell a clear story." Legal experts weighed in. Attorney Marcia Johnson noted, "These recordings not only corroborate victims' testimonies, but also reveal a consistent pattern of behavior." Former prosecutor Thomas Reynolds added, "The prosecution has painted a picture of a system, not just isolated incidents." The trial of Sean Combs, known as Diddy, gripped the world as 50 Cent took the witness stand, armed with a decade's worth of recorded evidence. Tension filled the courtroom when Diddy, once an untouchable titan of music, collapsed mid-session, moments after the first testimony. With a steady, resolute voice, 50 Cent recounted unsettling parties, veiled threats, and scenes he witnessed at Diddy's events. The recordings laid bare a pattern of control, manipulation, and pressure Diddy exerted over artists and associates. Diddy returned to the trial visibly drained, facing the stark reality unfolding. 50 Cent's testimony, backed by the recordings, not only illuminated the allegations, but also raised questions about a long-standing system. Public and industry reactions surged as the truth began to surface. 50 Cent's journey in the trial is more than a clash between two men. It's a reminder of the power of courage in confronting wrong. Through each testimony and recording, he chose to stand up and speak the truth despite facing risks and criticism. His actions prompt reflection. What would we do when we see someone harmed or silenced by power? Silence is easy, but speaking out, however small, sparks change. Think of those around you, a colleague, a friend, or even a stranger. If you notice something off, listen, care, and act when you can. A single question or small gesture of support can sometimes break the wall of silence. This story also urges us to look deeper into the environments we inhabit. Power, fame, and wealth can obscure the truth, but each of us has the ability to help bring it to light. You don't need to be a witness in a courtroom to make a difference. Start close to home, stand up for someone, refuse to enable wrongdoing, and inspire others to do the same. As 50 Cent showed, the truth carries immense power when spoken, but it demands individual courage to ignite. The courtroom saga is far from over. How will the jury interpret this evidence? Will justice prevail? And a startling new detail emerges: an anonymous witness, once warned by 50 Cent via text, is preparing to come forward. What further shadows of the entertainment industry will their story unveil?